My name is Jan. I am a co-founder and technical lead at Zircuit. I am very happy to be here to tell you a little bit about what we do, a little bit more about the prizes, and just, introduction to Zircuit, if you don't know what we are. So without further ado, I will get into it. So welcome to ETH Global NYC 2025 Hackathon. And in this little talk, it's not going to be too much of a hands-on workshop. I do realize it's a workshop, but we're going to talk about a couple things. First, what we think makes a good project. So if you're looking for our prizes, probably want to pay attention. This is in fact the main goal of this presentation to you, is to sort of get you the opportunity to maximize your chance of winning. A little bit about the resources you need from Zircuit. We're pretty simple from a user point of view, so there's not much there, but I will still cover the details. And finally, what the specific prizes are that we have for this hackathon. So without further ado, what makes a great project? Or at least what do I think makes a great project? Which matters a lot because I'll be judging the Zircuit bounties or prizes. I think first of all, and this is a little bit obvious, apologies, but I think it's worth saying, they solve a problem, right? Come to me and say, hey, we're building this app, it's really cool, and we're doing something for some reason. We're solving something that maybe other people really care about. So maybe you're making the world a better place. Maybe you're solving a market like lack of solutions. So you need to move money, or you need to sell something, or there's a service. You're building a product essentially. Maybe you're just solving a technical challenge, right? Maybe actually in terms of the the market, everyone's made enough money, but you really hate hooking up one protocol to another, and just there's like so many calls, and your AI agent can't figure it out. So maybe you're just solving a technical challenge, or my personal favorite, maybe you're just solving a problem for yourself, right? Maybe the problem is you're not familiar enough with what is going on in this space, and you're here to learn. I think that is a totally acceptable type of problem to solve for a hackathon like this one. After all, you only have a couple of days. It's not like you can, build out a massive company. So feel free to target problems like this, but either way, identify your problem and figure out what it is you want to solve. Probably you're not going to solve all of these at once. Maybe you're going to get some experience and try to build a product, or maybe you're going to, solve a tech challenge and build your CV, or maybe you're going to be really good at just building a product. And we'll talk about how maybe that's just enough at the end. But I think the best projects solve problems that you don't forget about. And I think that's the key takeaway. I might forget about it. I hope not. I think the really best ones I'll be thinking about for months or years later. But you should not forget what it is. Maybe you've solved, a good product and you want to take it from just a hackathon POC to, a real company. Or you're going to take what you learned here and say, actually, it was really cool that I moved some NFTs. What if I did it quicker? Or what if I did it faster? Or what if I generated it in a different way or in a different chain? Or what if I used the the PayPal stablecoin we just heard a lot about instead of some other thing? You're going to want to iterate on it and think about it. And it's going to live in your mind for a long time. Because if you don't forget about it, the person who has the passion for building it, other people probably aren't going to forget about it too. And if you can convince me to keep thinking about it for years, that's even better. But you should always be building something that solves a problem, and it should not be something that's just going to flare up and then die, right? Maybe next time you won't build on exactly the same code base, but you'll use the experience you gained here today or over this weekend to figure out how to do it better next time. So solve a problem, but don't over-engineer it. There's a lot of buzzwords in tech. A lot of them are in this room. I'm here representing a blockchain that uses AI. That's two of the biggest ones right there. That being said, a lot of solutions are a lot simpler and a lot more basic than they need to be in terms of some investors, right? AI is really hype. Use it if it makes sense. But if a regular expression can do the job, use the regular expression. Do the other things that are simpler if it means you can get to market or solve your problem much more quickly. You don't need to have an AI everywhere just for the sake of AI. Maybe you do if you want to invest, but I honestly don't think the investors will go for that. And even on things like blockchain. Admittedly, we see a lot of apps come through, prize judging, and it's like, why are you using a blockchain when you could just use a database? People don't like to hear that feedback, but the reality is sometimes blockchain, is not the right fit. So try to really come up with a problem to solve that actually tackles something where, there's not trust everywhere, where a blockchain makes a lot of sense. And so when you're going to present, your final submission, justify why you're doing something. If you really need something that's really intense or really difficult, or you can't use an off-the-shelf solution, figure out why exactly that is. It might be the case that you just can't afford them, right? So it might be a solution provider out there that you don't have an account with, and they don't have a trial, you can't do anything about it. But it might also just be the fact that you could figure out a better way to do it. That's a lot more simpler. And while you're building all of this, you're going to be here for a couple of days. Talk to other people. I think it's really important you talk to other people. You share your idea. This is not because I want your idea to be stolen. In fact, I hope none of that happens. But you should, hear feedback from what people tell you. Now, it's critical, I think, that you tell people where you are and you hear, but you don't necessarily incorporate all of that feedback. Some people will hate your idea, and they will be wrong. Others will hate your idea, and they will give you good feedback as to why they think that idea is not worth solving or your approach is not good. But listen to them, figure it out, and then narrow it down so that whatever you end up solving is solved in the way that you think satisfies the best sort of set of requirements that you've heard over the couple of days. Because you might start with a project which you might seem is very technically difficult. As a researcher, I've seen this lots of times. Like, oh, what if we did this? What if we did that? And I'll think about it in my room for 3 days. Like, it'd be really cool. Okay, I'm going to go out and build it. And I'm going to go tell my peers. And then within 3 minutes, they're like, oh, actually, that's solved. It's right over there. And you're like, crap. Now, what do I do with my life? As a researcher, that's annoying because I have to write a new paper, do something different, or I have to build a new product. At a hackathon, you just move on. Like, cool, let's get a new one. Go for it. So listen, talk, but use your own discretion to actually build the thing you want to build, because at the end of the day, you are building something for yourself. Time is limited. If someone does say there are services that can help you build something quicker, use them. It's almost certainly not better to reinvent the wheel, but sometimes there's a use case. And finally, I think the best projects are built on Zircuit. What a surprise. I work for Zircuit, so we're here sponsoring it. We're giving out some prizes. Zircuit's a great place to launch a Web3 project. We're a layer 2 rollup on Ethereum. We're zero knowledge, so fast finality at the end of the day. But we've got some other cool stuff. We got quicker block times in Ethereum. We're certainly a lot cheaper than Ethereum. We're fully EVM compatible, so everything you can write and deploy on Ethereum itself, you'll have no problem deploying on Zircuit. If for any reason something does go wrong, please come find me. But it's not going to happen. And finally, we have at least one special feature, which is this AI in our blockchain. So as we go through building blocks for our layer 2 network, we actually have an AI that determines if transactions are malicious or benign. And what we're doing is trying to prevent all hacks from happening on our network. So if you're building a DeFi protocol and you don't want to get it audited, I think it's bad advice, but if for some reason you don't, our AI can actually still prevent people from stealing funds from your users on our chain. Conversely, if you're a user, you can use a DeFi protocol without worrying about if it's audited to some extent. It's an AI, so it's got really, really good returns, but it's not a formal proof and it's not a guarantee. Nonetheless, we'll work with everything to make sure that the hacks on our chain go to zero and there's none. So that's the most unique thing that Zircuit has, and we call this sequential level security. There's no way to sort of incorporate it as a developer, so you can't sort of change the rules of the AI or convince it, in some way that what you're doing is a hack or not a hack, other than just doing stuff. It's not a prompt thing, so you can't sort of try to game that. But nonetheless, it's there, and it's going to protect people, your users, or you, or both. And if you're interested in trying to figure out how to change that, come talk to me. We can talk on a B2B level. And of course, there's prizes. That's also why you want to build on Zircuit. It's probably why you're in this room right now. So before I get to the prizes, I'll give you a little bit of the technical details. The quick start stuff is not going to be super intense, and I will tell you it's pretty straightforward. As an EVM-compatible chain, most of the same sort of tooling and infrastructure you'd use on Ethereum should work out of the box more or less on Ethereum or on Zircuit chains. Your best starting place is docs.zircuit.com. You'll find all the links there that you need. The RPC endpoints for our mainnet, our testnet, hints about our architecture and design if that's important to what you're doing. Probably, it won't matter that we're a ZK rollup other than sort of speed of finality, and it probably won't matter that we have this SLS unless you're using it to protect your stuff, but there's no way to sort of directly talk to it anyways. There's, in some cases, some very rare limitations. If you really want to shove a bunch of hash functions onto the chain, the provers might not like that. That's going away in a couple of weeks. We're upgrading our ZKVM, but unfortunately, it's not here just yet. Nonetheless, all the details you need are in docs.zircuit.com, so if you can only remember one URL, this is the one you should take away. Otherwise, connecting to Zircuit, if it's not already in your wallet, is as simple as changing an RPC endpoint and changing the chain ID, as well as our block explorer. We do have a custom block explorer, which I'll talk about. But it should be straightforward. Put the RPC endpoint in, change the endpoint. Everything should just work out of the box. And I think in a lot of cases, we're already pre-populated in a bunch of things. And if you need these specific details, docs.zircuit.com/buildonzircuit. For the prizes and this hackathon, you're free to use either testnet or mainnet to submit prizes if you need to verify code on chain. Obviously, testnet is cheap, and there are faucets. I'll talk about that, so use that. But if you want to go mainnet, also fine with me. the functionality is the same. If you don't want a block explorer, we have a custom built one. This is largely in part because we have this feature called sequencer level security, where sometimes transactions are put into quarantine if they're malicious. So we need to build our own stuff, but it should more or less have all the functionality you need and want from a standard block explorer. You can verify contracts, which is important if you're submitting prizes. You can see all the actions that you're taking in all the contracts. Explorer.zircuit.com. It's all linked. Getting onto and off of the network, pretty straightforward as well. We were built on the OP stack, so if you have any tooling that's familiar with OP stack withdrawals and deposits, it's going to work. Just change the address to the ones that we have for Zircuit and Zircuit Testnet. Our Testnet's on Sepolia, so you can work with that. You can get Faucets. I think it's the next slide, and otherwise pretty straightforward. And there we go, the Faucets. ETH Global has one set up. That's great on our testnet, so you can get Sepolia ETH on our Garfield network right there, or you can get on Sepolia and then bridge it over. And I encourage you to get the hacker pack in order to get all of this stuff for free. I think you can probably find some other stuff. It's not super interesting to talk about URLs publicly. So that's the technical details, or that's the sort of the quick start details covered, and I'm making record time here. So we'll get into the prizes, which I think is the most interesting part. Anyways. First, some boilerplate stuff. Requirements are, I think, reasonable. If you don't think they're reasonable, please tell me why at the end of the talk. But essentially, we want to see some smart contracts, and we want them deployed on Zircuit. What a surprise. Testnet or mainnet. Testnet's cheaper, use Testnet. And then, a GitHub repo that I think all the people will want. And it would be nice to see a description of what you're solving, how you solved it, why you chose Zircuit, or how you use Zircuit. It might just be as simple as, well, we needed a network and we picked yours. The description of the team. I'd love to learn a little bit about you and what you guys are doing. And some other little stuff. If you want to give us a demo or a video, great. We're not going to be necessarily investing in you, so there's no need for that, but it would be nice. And instructions to test it so that we can see that it actually works. In order to win, we do need to see some code deployed with one caveat. And that caveat is we have two different categories for prizes at this event. And the first one is best project deployed on Zircuit. So for deployed on Zircuit, I need to see code on Zircuit. Or surprise. The second one, I do not. And I will get into that in just a minute. So best project deployed on Zircuit is pretty open-ended. This is intentional. We want to see what people can do. I think it's a pretty standard ask, and because we're a fully EVM-compatible chain, we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves into any particular app category or do anything specific. So just build anything, make it good, make some part of it work. Depending on the complexity of the app, not all use cases will be totally finished, but there should be some things that work and work really well, and well enough to demo to us sort of at the end of the hackathon. Whether or not you do that in person is up to you and your schedule, and if we're around, which we should be. But something should work, and it shouldn't just be an idea. We do like new stuff. It's more exciting to see brand new stuff on the chain. But honestly, if you come to me and just say, look, I made some protocol that we all know and love better, faster, or easier, that's also acceptable as long as there's notable improvement. And there's not just forking something from one chain to the other. I don't think that's quite good enough. It might be if you're the only one who submits, but probably not. On the other hand, we tried this prize the last hackathon in Cannes, and this one was really, really interesting. We got a lot of feedback on this, and I expect to see a lot of interest in this time. Here, we don't even want functional code. This is a little weird for a hackathon. You probably should be hacking something, but really, I just want the best app idea. I'm not going to steal the app idea. I'm not going to go build it myself. But what I want to see is a killer app that will get people who maybe aren't in this building today into blockchain. Or not, maybe it's just other blockchain people. But something that will actually bring people onto, let's say, Zircuit, week after week, day after day, or month after month. Something that might just be, an interesting twist on a stablecoin. I'm not really seeing how that could be super impressive, but maybe there's one out there. Or something else that will just get people coming in. It just happens to use a blockchain under the hood, whether or not that's implicit. They don't necessarily explicitly sign transactions, or something where it's really technical and they have to get in there. We don't need to see code. I absolutely do not need to see functional, deployed, verified smart contracts on Zircuit or any of the networks related to it. But what I do need is, some, some understanding that you spent some time thinking about it over this week, right? Not just like, oh, it's 20 minutes, I better try for this prize. That's not the goal. What I want to see is a clear and detailed problem statement. So what you're trying to solve, who's the market, who's your users, what are you doing? A compelling solution that uses a blockchain, and in this case, it should be Zircuit. Why is it you need a blockchain? Why can't you just do this with a database? Why is this a Web3 native thing? Or what advantages do you get, even if you could use it for one? And then a pitch. So, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, whatever, something like this. It says why I really think this matters, why my users will care, and who's going to use it. And ideally, some other technical stuff like, okay, I'm going to have a blockchain here, and I'm going to have a microservice there that does something. I'm not expecting you to write these things. But just an understanding that if you were to go build this, that you'd have a pretty good idea of what your first couple of weeks or months of building that would look like. And that's a really, big ask, but it's something to convince us that really you thought about this and you care about it and that you think that it's feasible, because also, you could say something that's going to be really, really hard. Right, so just coming up with like, I'm going to do general AI that like is really good probably isn't a good pitch, but if you apply it in some very specific area and you figure out exactly what's going to change, I think that's where the value is. I'm going lightning fast, so I apologize, but that's the end of the talk. So I'm happy to take questions about Zircuit, which I didn't talk too much about. Didn't think it was an appropriate place to shield too hard, and about the prizes, which I did talk a little bit more about. So I saw 2 hands at least, and I think I saw yours first. No, I mean we're a general purpose chain, so there's nothing that's inherently Zircuit specific. That being said, our sequencer level security, this thing that prevents hacks, it's very easy to understand what a hack is when there's financial loss. So there's a bias towards DeFi in the sense that like we know what it means to have something hacked, or like if you steal an NFT, that's a clear hack. What does it mean to be a hack on a Web3 game? It's a little tougher. The AI might struggle, admittedly, because we don't have a lot of training data, because there's probably just not a lot of really popular Web3 games. Now, if that hack stole money from the game, we'll catch that, no problem. But there's nothing that's inherently, Zircuit powered that's super special. We have products being built on top of it from inside and from outside people, but it's more or less just a EVM chain. Yeah.
All the projects that you've seen personally, where is the project that excites you the most? Why?
Oh, like overall of my hackathon experience, or just like today, in general. Uh,
Something that you've seen that you really liked.
I'm sure I have an answer for you, but I have a hard time. Um,
One that you remember that was pretty cool.
yeah, I mean, we had this idea for the ideas tracking last time in France, and there were 3 clear winners. One of them was the idea to actually take uh, the SP1 prover that we're using behind the scenes in Zircuit and add a coprocessor to it and do something. So the killer idea was actually just making Zircuit better. I don't know if that's got like a great product market fit, and I didn't promise them that we'd build that out. And then there were a couple other ones that used account abstraction, which were very nice, but they just felt like natural extensions of wallets. And I really like them, and I think there's a lot of really good places for good account abstraction to cut all the bad UX out of this space. But like I'm also it sort of just feels like par for the course, or at least it will be in like a year and a half whenever account abstraction really becomes like really powerful. And then I think there was one for period tracking for women, and I thought that was really, really interesting. I think they had a lot of really technical challenges to overcome before they make that a reality, but it was something that like actually that's not DeFi. That's like, oh good, you're using a blockchain for something that might matter to a lot of people, and they had compelling use cases for exporting the data or keeping it encrypted or doing whatever it is that they wanted to do with this data. And that was really, really exciting because it wasn't just, look, I'm getting 5% more yield. Because as much as I love money, like someone will figure out that 5% yield, and it's not quite as interesting. Personally, I would love to see more games in the space. So if you're looking for ideas, I think the best way to sort of get lots of users on a chain, for example, is to build a game that under the hood uses a blockchain, and maybe you give someone a wallet that they can export if they care about their coins, but otherwise you just let it sort of do its thing, and people don't even know they're using a blockchain until suddenly they can, transfer their skins out of the game or their stats or whatever it is that they're doing. And I haven't seen one. I think the problem is everyone wants to build a blockchain game, and so they try really hard to get the blockchain to work, and the games are not fun. And I think that's the wrong way to approach a game. And I could just be, not playing the right game. So maybe one is out there. I'm not trying to say it doesn't exist, but I would love to see a really fun game where I'm like playing it nonstop and there happens to be a blockchain. Yeah, go for it. If any follow-ups? Okay. I believe we have layer 0. I have to triple check, but I'm pretty sure we do. I'm on the tech side, so I don't know who our integrations are. I believe for oracles we have at least Redstone, so they should be there. I don't know what other pricing oracles or data oracles there. If you go to Zircuit.com, there is like a logo wall of all of our partners, and so there should be at least one oracle there, and you can figure out how that works, or come ask me and I can figure out how to overcome that. But there should be at least one. Any other questions? All right. Then I won't stand here. I will be around. Feel free to ask me. Come down to the booth downstairs. If you haven't got a toy cat plushie, please. Oh, okay. One question. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure there is. I wouldn't be surprised if the BD team doesn't, go there first. But go build one then. I would love to see it. I'd love to see Circuit be a gaming chain. Beautiful. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so I'm gonna end it there. Thanks.